good morning, all of you. Welcome. Thank you for participating in this fireside chat. Looking forward to a great discussion. So we'll kick things off with our typical disclaimer that the views of all the panelists in this discussion are their own and don't necessarily reflect the views of their organizations. And with that, we'll kick things off with introductions. So tell us a bit more about each of you and what you do in your current role. We'll start with you, Amber.
Yeah, absolutely. So Amber Eshelman, I've been with ADP for 18 years almost, and wonderful place to be. Right now I'm focused on global data and AI governance, so I've taken a long path there. I think as this has started to explode in our current culture, I started as an analyst, 18 years ago, a data analyst, so I've always had an obsession with data, but certainly it's kind of grown into like more of a data protection, and that's really exciting.
Awesome. Taj?
Yeah, hi. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Brian. Happy Friday. Thank you all for being here. So I'm Taj Pirzada. I work with Nike, and I am an AI leader, one out of many leaders that we have in the company. I was running AI for North America. I have an expanded role now, and the role involves a lot of Gen AI, also implementing AI governance for Nike. That's been a big process for us. I own it end to end. I own the automation of it end to end. So, as I said, it's just been, working with different groups and organizations. I am working on a number of Gen AI initiatives, running some POCs with vendors, trying to see some outcomes. I have a pretty large team of data engineers, data scientists, machine learning engineers, they have their specific roles that, what they execute on. And then I get sent off to different directions to go chase down, even analyzing a role I enjoy, but it's dealing with vendors and them showing us what they could potentially do for us. So I do a lot of vendor evaluations as well. So it's been a fun ride.
Thanks for joining us again, Taj. Kartik?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kartik Pillai. I'm the Director of Data Strategy for Yum Brands. And for those of you who don't know, Yum Brands is the parent company for Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, KFC, and the Habit Burger Grill. I started my journey with Yum Brands about 3 years ago, starting as a data strategy lead for Pizza Hut US. And then I expanded my role to Pizza Hut Global. So now I support data analytics and the platform for about 120 countries. As part of my role, I also lead the data governance and privacy practice for Pizza Hut and collaborate with our sister brands, Taco Bell and KFC.
Excellent. Well, welcome to all of you. We're excited to have you here. So we've been talking a lot at this conference so far about the practical side of AI implementation and what that really looks like for organizations. But I want to kick off this panel by asking you to imagine a little bit. Imagine a future state where a lot of that has already occurred. And if you could today identify one futuristic AI capability that you would like in your organization in the future, what would it be? And we'll go in reverse order. Why don't we start with you, Kartik?
So the future of AI, especially in the QSR space, is quite evolving as we speak. It's an omnichannel experience where the customer touch point values a lot for us. And there are a lot of complexities that we want to solve with it. So just by the show of hands, how many of you all have had wrong orders either delivered or picked up when you go through a drive-through or have it ordered through Uber Eats and Grubhub? I'll attempt to see, but I can't see. So the QSR industry statistics says that about 18% of orders through drive-through are incorrect, and about 30% of orders through front of the house, they are incorrect. That means that you are losing that customer coming back, and this is a QSR industry-wide stat. So one of the future AI implementations would be automation of test kitchens, where it's a fully integrated kitchen where you show up, it's a personless kitchen essentially. So there could be an AI barista making your coffee, so that next time you need to go into Starbucks and order a grande iced venti lavender mocha latte with a drizzle of something on it in a grande cup with extra foam, it doesn't get it wrong. It gets you right.
Yeah, great point. Mass personalization, obviously one of the most exciting developments around AI. Taj, what do you think?
So fast forward into the future. Personally, I want to be on Coruscant, jump into a spaceship, and go across the galaxy, pull out my lightsaber. So I'll never live that life, right? That's what I really want to do. But so my view is going to be between 3 and 5 years, which is a lot in technology. So I think that's as far as I can think, because it's just the paradigm shift, just even the last few years, has been so great that, again, we'll go as far as our imagination, but let's talk about reality. So the reality is, somebody recently said this to me in a meeting, and I've kind of held on to it. And they said that we were all consumers of AI, right? Like, I build, but there are a lot of people who just consume. Now everybody's able to build, everybody's going to have access, everybody has Gen AI, the risks are greater, so there's a lot of that going on. If you ask me what is my backlog of what is, it's like 300 or 400 use cases from across the org, from everywhere, from HR to payroll to business to marketing to content development there's a lot of stuff that, it's just, everybody's just imagining it, and then they're bringing it to us and saying, hey, can you make that a reality for us? So the future of AI is that it's, number one, it's here. You see that freight train coming. I think that it's like a plane. It's already here, and we're all just holding on for dear life. And things will evolve, and we will continue to be uncomfortable, and we're going to fake it till we make it. But the future is definitely bright, and there's nothing that your imagination, it's about like connecting what you think you can do to making it a reality, and looking at those business drivers and saying, okay, is this a viable solution for us to pursue? And if it makes, most companies are for profit, and if it makes a profit for the organization, then that's the direction that we're going to head into.
Absolutely. Business case, a critical component of making that case. Amber, what do you think?
I think I'm the least cool person on this stage, because these guys get to talk about food and pizza and Air Jordans and stuff, and my answer is probably about to prove it. I get to talk about governance, and I dream of a world where we safely enable AI. So for me, it's about controls, guardrails. If I could invent anything, I'm like you. I think we don't even know the art of the possible yet, and I think it's really interesting. We're so immature in this space, even though it's moving so fast. And so I don't know that I could say in 5 years I dream of this, but what I do really genuinely dream of is a way for us to enable this safely. I think inherently a lot of technology is good, but the human element of this is really, really important. And I think we all need to grab hold of it and know that we're all stewards in this. And so I don't know, if I could build, the irony is we're building models to manage models. And so it's like, hey, machine, go over there and make sure that machine is doing what it's supposed to do. The human in the loop, the human element, I think still remains so present and prevalent in the thread of this entire thing. So for me, I would implement something that can monitor that, but obviously I think the human is overseeing it and making sure that we don't have AI robot or something going on. So I would say that would be my dream. Safe enablement of AI.
Absolutely, and you make a great point. That's why we have you on this panel, is we can't have a panel about the future without data governance, right? We have to, that's a critical part of this conversation, is all these cool things that we want to do and we want to implement. Data governance plays a central role in all of that and making sure that we do it safely and responsibly. So great perspective there. So let's think a bit about kind of that next level of innovations, these second and third generation innovations that are going to be built on top of AI. And you don't have to make specific predictions, although you're welcome to, about kind of what products we might see emerge. But I think understanding also what is the framework around this? So in the context of the internet, some of those second and third generation innovations are things like smartphones, things like high-speed internet, Wi-Fi, and that's enabled other developments like the gig economy. So what do you think the equivalent of those is going to be for AI? We'll start with you, Taj.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I recently saw, and I got my hands on it just a couple of days ago, so Microsoft 365, not plugging anybody here, right? So they have Copilot, but I did not realize that Copilot is this generic term that they use, and they add intelligence everywhere. Oh, show me my last 10 emails. Show me what's important. So I asked questions like, who's my manager and what does she want from me? They gave me a whole lot of answers. They knew who my manager was magically. And so it can go through all these documents that you have and just help you out. And then like I went to PowerPoint and I said, hey, take slide number 3, make it slide number 4, and increase the font size to 12. And then next thing you know, magically. So all the automation that was all about like clicking and you were clicking stuff. So all that is going to be more automated. It's going to be under the hood. And I think every single device, every piece of software, everything is going to have added intelligence. So I think that's where we're heading. It's obvious to me, and for us, it's all about empowering everybody to have that access, balancing the risk of not everybody's going to do the right thing. And I did ask like silly questions like, who's your daddy? And it said, I cannot answer that. So there were some guardrails, built in. And I ran that as an experiment because I'm always testing solutions and I have to talk to the leaders and I have to tell them that, hey, this is a viable solution for us to look at. So I also think that fit for purpose, there'll be a lot of like apps, like point solutions. So for example, when we have open enrollment, and all of us know like, oh, what should I pick and why should I pick it and how much will it cost me? And I don't know if I've ever been able to call an 800 number and gotten a straight answer, or it's difficult because it's personal. You're talking about insurance for yourself and your family members, and should I get vision? Should I not get vision? My wife has her own insurance and she has her own policy, and her and I don't see the same doctors, and my kids are on her policy, and it's a whole lot of that. But I'm always still guessing. So one of the things that I'm thinking about is, can I have a benefits app that can just be more intuitive and walk me through the stuff? I have HR-related questions. I mean, do I need to talk to somebody, or can I just have, my questions answered in a meaningful way? Remember, the answers are going to be factual, but it's a human explaining those facts. And sometimes, I don't know, if you talk to 2 people, you might get 2 different opinions, right? I always have like 3 calls, but I'm doing some research. And if 2 people agree on the answer, then that is probably the right answer. So that's a complete waste of time. So those things should not happen in the future. And I think, those point solutions, are easy or easier to build, to develop, and to deploy. And that is the help that we will get. So AI, shouldn't call it AI all the time, right? But it's just added intelligence in all of our, not just devices, but apps and everything else.
Yeah, great points. Amber, what do you think?
I think we all struggle with the same, like answering some of these questions because it is so unknown. But I will say, like, I think that any great invention is usually a disruptor. And I do think AI is an incredible disruptor, not only in our professional lives, but our personal lives. And I would say that, if I lean into the humanity of it, I see us being able to save more lives with early detection because the naked eye can't see certain things, or we're moving so fast. Although John in the keynote the other day made me really question medical studies, but I do think that there's a lot of hope there, right? And I think that's why we're having this conversation, is because it's our responsibility to do the right thing with the power that's being wielded with this technology. So I would say that, in addition to some of those great things like saving lives and early detection and new cures, I would say also like it's the ability to take some of that mundane daily activity and the automation out of play and allow us to like really show our skill sets, our unique skill set. Everyone here is unique and has something unique to bring to the table. I think sometimes that gets weighed down with some of the automation and the repetition. And so, I do think that it should hopefully give us back time in our personal lives because we're more efficient. It should give us back time to be more effective in our professional lives. But yeah, I do think that, I think it'll play across every stream of your life, whether it's personal, professional, medical. I think it's going to show up everywhere.
Yeah, I love the idea of eliminating the monotony, elevating humans to really our highest and best use. What do you think, Kartik?
Kind of agree with both of them. The idea with the futuristic idea of AI is to reduce the cognitive burden on people, especially in the back of the house operations. How can their life be made simpler so that they are not doing the same mundane tasks again and again. One of the other items which I've, again, cross-industry, we all go through industry learnings, we all go through regular trainings and protocols, but our retention of all of that is very minimal. And you don't want to sit through, again, the whole hour worth of session, and you can't even fast forward it. With the age of TikTok, it's more about how can I condense that information using AI, which is more appropriate and delivered to you at time. An example is, especially in the QSR, since I'm in the restaurant industry, you have a start of the day procedure for a certain things, and someone has to go through and look at the SOP. Hey, what am I supposed to do? What if there was a prompt which could go on your wearable device and say, hey, it's 9 o'clock, go and just do that? Makes life much more easier. Same with back office operations. So right now, AI, IoT, intelligence, kind of different domains, but I see a world where all of them come together and makes operations more efficient and essentially leading to human lives becoming simpler.
Yeah, these are great points, and I think it leads naturally to our next question, which is as we talk about efficiencies, we talk about getting rid of these tedious tasks or tasks that are lower level, maybe that don't require as much human ingenuity, there is a risk that there's a lot of jobs that are required to perform those tasks that are important jobs, and so when those tasks are automated, are the folks who currently hold those jobs going to be automated out of a job? And what are the implications of that, both for them and for our society and for our organizations, and how do we grapple with that, and what will emerge to take its place? So Amber, what are your thoughts there on the future of work in that kind of climate?
I'm excited, but that's because governance is like having its day in the sun. So no, I do see that we're creating new jobs, right? Data protection, data privacy, data security, data access, all of those things, while they've been important, they've been a lot of back office. They haven't been sitting on a stage talking to audiences. And so I do think there's a lot of job creation there, but I also would say, I think we have to remember one of the greatest controls that we have for AI is the human in the loop. I mean, it's true. We have to stay present. We have to make sure we're monitoring these things, that we know nuances that a machine could never know. And so I think although people have that fear, I think what it really will do is enable us to show up more human to everybody, and I think more present and more in the moment, and less repetitive and kind of like in the zone of just like ticky tacky. So I do think that at the end of the day, like, people have to remember that the human in the loop is one of the greatest controls that we have. And as you show up for your work, and as you show up and you interact with these things, your opinion, the way you interact with all of these tools is a big part of its success. It can't be successful alone. And so I don't really see a world where that kind of completely gets eliminated in any way, shape, or form, because I do think there's controls in place that need to be there.
Yeah, great points. Kartik, what do you think?
It definitely would open up a lot more avenues in terms of higher ed, in terms of engineering that we study today might evolve into something more specific to what people want to do. And overall, on a different tangential note, I feel the whole idea of AI, especially in my head, is to make life simpler and reducing my time that I am taking up a task to do. That just opens up your time to do more vocational stuff that you wanted to do, but you are not able to do. And obviously the research around human-machine interaction would be something that would be up for a lot of research coming in the future.
Yeah, great points. I mean, human-machine interaction and the human in the loop, I think that's really getting at how are we going to interplay with these as machines get more and more sophisticated and advanced? What is our role in that? And there is a role, but what does it look like? Taj, what are your thoughts?
So for the record, I never build a system without a human in the loop, right? And it's really, 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 really important for us to do that. Human intuition, it's far superior than any system and any product we're ever going to put out there, at least for the next so many years. And once we detach the human in the loop, or we detach the human, it becomes Skynet and tries to take over the universe and destroy us, right? So we don't want to go there either. My smartest prompt engineer when it comes to Gen AI is a non-engineer. We have 11,000 people in the engineering group. And he is front and center. I'm going to write the next best prompt, and I'm going to work on it. I'm going to publish it. I'm going to write papers. I'm going to share it, whether you guys like it or not. And all of us have looked at him as our de facto expert. And he's not an engineer because he has his day job in procurement, and then he's always playing, writing prompts. So it's all about evolving your skill set, right? So if your job involves a whole lot of clicks over the course of the day and no processing, well, that's a problem because we can automate the clicks. So what do you bring to the table that will allow you to process and analyze and dimensionalize and leverage your AI, right? Write me a paper to do this, or these are my thoughts. Can you write it in better English? That's a different skill set, right? Than saying, let the AI do my thinking, then the AI is going to try to replace you, right? And you don't want that either. So I just think that every single role is going to continue to evolve. All of us do. You're all here to learn something, to read something, to understand something. Where's the world going? What's happening? How do I become a part of this? How does it become part of my future? Well, it's not a cliche. The future is already here, right? Like, don't go chasing the future. The future is here. It's now. These are the actions that you're going to take. And just by the virtue of being educated around it, knowing how to handle it, knowing how to incorporate it, knowing how to make decisions around it, it's really important. And that is what I think about. I mean, is there fear? 100. There's definitely fear. What we take for granted in engineering, where I sit, is, well, just because I don't know it, it doesn't mean I can't go and figure it out. Well, but there are plenty of people who don't have that aptitude. They're really good at marketing. They're really good at content writing. They're really good at other things. And to them, technology is just a tool that they use. But when they have to learn a whole lot of new stuff, like every week, which in techies, we're like, oh, I want to learn something new every week. Most people are not comfortable doing that. And I don't think about that, but I know that talking to our HR leaders, I know that they're really aware of how to make people less uncomfortable, with the change in technology. So, that's where we have to strike a balance.
Yeah, it's a great perspective on kind of the pace of change. It's, we talk about upskilling and reskilling, but that's one thing. If you've got to do that every few years, what does it look like when there's new technologies every week, right? It looks very different. So I think that's a real challenge that we've got in front of us in terms of reskilling and upskilling the workforce. This also really fundamentally changes our relationship with data, as we do more things like mass personalization and allow folks to interact in a chatbot-like way with mass amounts of our data, basically setting GPT loose on our data warehouses. That poses some real challenges around the way that you strategize with respect to data. So let's talk a bit about that. How do you guys see AI use cases transforming organizations' relationship with their data and how they form their data strategy? We'll start with you, Kartik.
So we talked about future of AI. I'm going to ground us back to the reality of today's world, where for a lot of organizations, data is usually an afterthought. So I think that mindset has to change and will change, because we will all soon realize that we cannot execute an AI use case without foundations of data quality, data governance, data catalog, data observability. Without this foundation being built, you will soon realize that I cannot execute my AI use case. So hopefully the learning from this way would be, let's build our foundation solid, and hopefully data will get a spot at the table where the decisions are made.
Great point. Taj?
Yeah, so I don't know if anything has changed in the data space, right? In the sense that, so my point of view, capture everything you can, put it in your data lake, and then get it ready for prime time, right? So let the AI, models be fed by really good data. So you have to have the semantic layer and everything else. And these are things that you guys probably are aware of, right? So I don't think the data strategy has changed so much. But I think the execution of that is really difficult, because I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen supreme redundancy, and we have 7 versions of the exact same data because 7 different groups are working on it. Reduce that redundancy, reduce the cost, execute on your idea of like observability and lineage, right? Like the data governance people love lineage. Where did the data come from? How many tables did you combine? And why aren't you aware of this? And why? Like, okay, I'll get to it when I get to it, right?
Hey.
Yeah, but I know it's important for you guys, right? So, but in terms of, and Brian, you and I had talked about this a few weeks ago. So the AI is now used to write data, right? So synthetic data. So I think that is like a big thing, right? So Gen AI can help you generate synthetic data. There are a lot of statistical techniques. So if you think about highly regulated industries, that's where you really have to watch the data very close, and you have to make sure there's no bias in the data. So you cannot use PII, which you should never be allowed to use, which is personally identifiable information. PHI in the healthcare, right? So your health information, all that stuff. But you can mask that, not just the names, but you can also create a similar data set which is identical, but it's not your actual underlying data. So you have to power the AI to teach it to then go ahead and give you other versions of the data that you can actually play with, you can openly share, and a lot of governance around the data is really important. And the bigger the company, the more careful you have to be. All the publicly traded companies that we all work for, any kind of leakage in data is like affects the whole company, affects our stock, affects a lot of jobs that they missed on something. So just again, I don't think that I have seen a lot of ideas around evolution as much as whatever you said you were going to do, data people, go ahead and do it. Go and execute. Go create that layer for us. Go create high quality data. Go make it easy for us. Don't make us jump through 25 hoops to give us row level access and give us column level access and give us database level access. And there's so much of that which is appropriate from a data security perspective, but just make it easy for us to use, for everybody around the organization to use, but also put all the guardrails in place to protect the data.
Yeah, great points. Amber, what do you think about that? Tease off well with data governance.
Yeah, well, I had a totally different talk track until this guy over here wanted to start hoarding data. And no, I think it's true. The more data you have, the more relevant, things will be, and you have different viewpoints. I think the biggest change from my perspective is that governance does have a seat at the table now when we come to talking about data strategy. And so people do want to talk about how are we going to, and it's enablement. We need to see governance as an enablement kind of practice, and not necessarily like the red tape. So I think that's work that has to be done in our space, because I think right now there kind of is a, can I please have access to this? I need access to that. And I think putting in really strong processes and practices around how you're going to safely enable access to different types of data. And another panelist said it yesterday about like only for what you need to do your job. And I think that's where use cases come in, and they're really important to make sure you understand why they need the data, what they need the data for, it's documented, and that you time bound it if necessary. Whatever that use case is, I think that it's all about safe enablement. So I think it's really important that you have those processes really clearly defined, that they are a well-oiled machine, because the second you become a friction point, the more people want to move around you. And so I think it's really important that we hold the line and be partners with those who want to use the data, because that's how we're going to make this whole thing work.
Yeah, I love the idea of partnership, and I think it is critical. It's like you're trying to effectively govern the data, but that requires being a partner and being somebody who can get to a yes and not always be the no, right? So it's just figuring out how we get to the right yes the right way, right? So I think that leads nicely into this next point, which is cultural shifts within organizations. So a few years ago, everyone was talking about we want our organizations to be data-driven. We're trying to be a more data-driven organization. I don't know what the new buzzword is for AI, but I think everyone's kind of getting there with AI. If we want to be an AI-ready organization, or we want to be AI first, or we want to be, leveraging AI in really cutting-edge ways. What does that mean culturally for an organization, especially in light of the things that we just talked about? Changes to the workforce, changes to data strategy. What does it look like culturally in, we'll say, 3 to 5 years for an organization to be AI-ready, AI first, AI literate? We'll start with you, Taj.
So your question is around what should happen to data in order for us to be AI first? Is that?
Well, data and organizational culture, how the teams interact with each other, kind of take that any way you want with how does the organization
So I've
transform?
already kind of hit on the data thing, so I'm going to get away from that. I think what I have seen a lot, and I'm sorry, what I have seen a lot is, and because I have a governance role as well in what I do, bringing all these different groups together. So I have to work with legal, and have to work with privacy, and sometimes there's the same team just wearing different hats, showing up in different meetings. Hey, we have privacy today, but yesterday we were just the legal team. Okay. So to report into the same, VP of, our OGC, Office of General Counsel, right? So, and then there's brand, right, which I wasn't even thinking about. So for us, how do we protect our brand? No harm must come to the brand, right? So there's a whole group that thinks about that, and they represent marketing. Then there is the whole, vendor management and relationship. Do we build it? Do we buy it? Do we partner? Which I'm trying to automate some of those processes. But there's a whole group that does that. And then there's a group called acceleration. And the acceleration office is saying, what are the opportunities at hand and how do we accelerate these opportunities? And by removing barriers pretty much, but eventually they want to start the process and then go away. So imagine this on a daily basis, and that's why my calendar is always full, right? I never get to write code anymore. Why? Because I'm like sitting with legal and privacy and brand and acceleration office and all these program and and then we have the big people that are chiming in from time to time, giving us direction, and then we all like get together and huddle up, and we have like standing meetings and. But the idea is that you are going to have to work across the aisle with everybody else, right? It's political season, so I'm sorry to say across the aisle. But it's kind of like that. Everybody has to come together to solve the problem. No one person is going to be able to solve the problem and then say, oh, rest of the org, large company, go implement this. It doesn't happen that way. Otherwise, what I have found is there's a lot of resistance. Well, you did not ask us, you did not consult with us, we were not important enough, so we're not going to support it. Even if it's good for me, I'm going to vote against my best self-interest. So there's, without that, nothing that you do is going to be, you're not going to be successful. And that's what the leaders want to see. They want to see cross-org, like collaboration, coming together to make decisions. Yes, the cycle becomes longer, and it's sometimes infinitely long. And I'm not comfortable with stuff that takes a long time. But without these wins, with all these different groups, I don't believe that I can, move a muscle. I can within my own team, but that's a very small part of this really large ecosystem that I'm trying to affect. So the other parts are, education, like everybody thinks they know and none of us know enough, and be comfortable with that. Ambiguity, we don't have the answers, we'll figure out the answers. We'll come together, all of us from all these different orgs, and we will come together and we will convince each other, we will debate it, and we'll convince each other that this is the right path forward, and then there's a unified front. So I think there's a lot of that dynamic to figure out where we are, how do we go forward, and how are we going to be successful in the future, right? It's not going to be you by yourself. It's going to be just, everybody around your organization, working together towards a common goal. Like, hey, we want to create more automation. Okay, what does that mean? Or we want to have more AI. Okay, it's very general. It's somebody's goal at the C-level. But how do we take that goal and how do we implement that and make that a reality? And what is the framework, and how do we define success? And at the end of the day, success is defined by dollars and cents. Most of you work for a for-profit, so remember, keep an eye on that as well. If you cannot positively benefit the organization, why would they invest $5 million, $10 million, $100 million into the success of AI or everything else, right? So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, great points about cross-organizational collaboration, showing ROI. Kartik, what do you think in terms of cultural shifts that we'll see in organizations?
To type what Taj said, we all work in agile teams, right? And from waterfall, we all move to agile, mostly software development teams, engineering teams. But the business isn't agile. Business doesn't recalibrate itself every 6 months. We don't change our direction that often. So my appeal to pretty much all the C-level is, hey, you have the data now, you have data-driven decisions. Are you willing to take the big bet and be agile and move in the right direction, or you just want to do AI for the fun of it?
Yeah, great point. Amber?
This is really interesting because you guys took a totally different spin on this. Because I really look at it from a culture change from everyone who touches the data. And so for me, I think most people are moving through their day, they're moving really fast, they're creating documents, whether it's a PowerPoint or a Word document or an email, and they're probably not thinking like in the back of their minds like, ooh, if I save this down over here, can it be discoverable by AI and surface in a matter of moments? And that's gonna have to change because what used to take, days for someone that probably didn't have the time to like scour a network and get 3 layers deep into a network drive and go, ooh, look at this really cool document I found I probably shouldn't have access to. AI is gonna be like, you asked a question in natural language, awesome, check this out. And then you're gonna have data exposure that you shouldn't have. So I do think that culture is actually part of our guardrails and our protections, and it takes a village. Like everybody owns governance. It's not just a centralized team. And I think that culture change is going to be one of the most important things that we can help to bring about inside businesses, is to think about your data differently and realize that your data is pretty much always on display when it comes to AI. AI can discover anything in a matter of milliseconds. So think about data classification, document classification. If I'm writing a document and it's an NDA, like that's restricted data, like that, then that's a big red flag to AI. That's hands off. I can't touch that, right? So I think there's a really important role that, again, humans play in saying, this shouldn't be here, or this shouldn't be classified as such. And so for me, I think culture change is always the hardest, period, no matter what. And I also think it's one of the most important changes that we're gonna have to work through and help all of our frontline associates, our operations people, anybody who's touching data and creating data. You have to really, really think about where can this go, where can this land, who can see it, who do I want to see it, and who do I want to have access to this or do anything with it. So that's kind of the culture change that I see that's gonna really, it's gonna take a churn in the workforce for them to not be, to take that extra step and add an extra step to their thought process and say okay, let me make sure I put the right protections in place on this PowerPoint slide, right? So yeah, I think that's the big culture change that I'm personally trying to advocate for and figure out a way to get 60,000 people to think this way, right? And it's hard. It's hard with big companies. It's hard. It's just hard to change our habits.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And everyone in this room probably thinks of themselves as a data person, and they are clued into those kinds of things and accustomed to thinking that way. But outside of this room, a lot of the folks that you work with who are actually creating a lot of data within the organization, interacting with a lot of your data, probably have no idea. They would never even think to call it data. They think it's a Word document, right? So it wouldn't even occur to them to think about these things. And it takes a lot of training and cultural shifts to be able to kind of get people to start thinking that way. So with that, we're going to go to our lightning round. So in one phrase or a few, this is kind of a 2-part question. Number one, what excites you the most about being part of the AI-driven transformation that we're going through right now? And number two, what keeps you up at night? So in a brief phrase, if you could answer those 2 parts. We'll start with you, Kartik.
What excites me most is how can AI be used for making human lives better, in terms of health, in terms of connectivity, in terms of making lives easier overall. And what keeps me up at night is GDPR is in place since such a long time, but the US or the North American market hasn't caught up to it. Now with Gen AI in place, I don't know when will we ever be able to catch up to the rules and regulations around it.
Great points. Taj?
Opportunities, research and development. One of the things that I was thinking about as I was driving here, I was like, I wonder, we always talk about the fear of AI, right? Like not everybody's comfortable, not everybody's in tech. I wonder if you could have, better AI systems to help everybody at every level, right, get better at what they do by offering the right kind of education, but connecting some kind of emotional dots as well. People are uncomfortable. How many people will accept openly that they are uncomfortable? We have a consensus that people are uncomfortable with change. But what is your tolerance? And then how can we help you get more educated? As I said, I was talking to some of the HR leaders. And they said the hardest thing to do is to give a bunch of courses that we're going to pay for and tell people go take them. You have to say, hey, maybe you want to think about taking a course, it'll be great for you. It's like all the wordings and all the stuff that people are like struggling with to put it in front of the employee population to even educate, right? I'm like a lifelong student. I always want to go learn stuff. And for me, it's a no-brainer. But there are lots of people who are uncomfortable, right? So having that personalized approach to making all of us better at what we do, that will eliminate a lot of the risk that people have around like, I'm going to be replaced by automation and technology. Well, keep learning, keep evolving, keep getting better, right? Like it's just, the reason I did not become a doctor is because I didn't want to study like medical journals all the time. And the reason I'm not an attorney is because I didn't want to read all the time. Well, I have read all the time ever since whenever, right? Never gotten away from reading. I don't like to read books, but I read blogs because I can expand the screen. I don't need my glasses all the time. So none of us can get away from that. But to make it a more personalized experience using AI, I think will help all of us, right? That is my idea of how we can help an employee population. What keeps me up at night is the same thing that probably keeps all of you up at night. Do I know enough? Do I know what I'm doing? What is my point of view? Is it a valid point of view? Do I understand what my leaders want me to do to implement AI within the organization? Am I able to convince the people higher up than me to see the view? I try to see it from their lens. Are they able to see it through my lens and the challenges that we have? Because people at the top are like, go make it happen. Okay, well, these are all the challenges. Oh, okay, we don't really care about these challenges. Go make it happen. And if you can't make it happen, somebody else is going to make it happen, right? So there's a fine balance there. But can we convince them that, am I good enough to convince my leaders that these are challenges and barriers to our success and allow me to, address those and give me the time and the space to be successful, and then we collectively can deliver successful transformation. So.
Yeah, excellent points. Amber will give you the last word.
Let's see. Excites me is definitely like the art of the possible. I think we've only just begun to understand what can and will be. And I don't even think when the internet was invented that people really knew where we would be 10, 20 years from then. And it's so rapid technology advancement. And this is going to be one of those things that I think is also incredibly rapid. So it's exciting. It's ambiguous. It's like and I'm with you with the learning. It's like you're just soaking everything up and you're really trying to it's exciting to actually have something new in this world that is really unknown so that we can really start to just learn and grow as people. I think what keeps me up at night, I think ironically is the human responsibility to do the right thing. I actually, for the comic nerds out there, Peter Parker's Uncle Ben said, great power, great responsibility. I do think that truly is the case with AI. And so I think we have a great responsibility to be the right stewards and use this technology in the best of ways and make sure that we're protecting our humanity first and our people and our communities. So that's what keeps me up at night. I have faith in the people, but certainly I think that's to me, the most unknown factor here.
Absolutely. Well, great discussion. This was an excellent kickoff to the day, and I think perfectly sets the stage for the rest of the conversations that will be taking place later today. So thank you all for your contributions and joining this great fireside chat. And with that, we're going to take a break for the networking break. We encourage you guys to check out the exhibitor booths outside and help yourself to refreshments. So thank you.
Thank you.